He stood just a few steps behind her, the weight of unspoken words hanging heavily in the air between them. The dim lights of the city flickered around them, casting long shadows that seemed to mirror the distance growing silently with every passing second. Can Yaman's gaze was fixed on Demet Özdemir's retreating figure, the curve of her shoulders, the rhythm of her steps, yet no matter how deeply he wished, she didn't turn around. She walked on, as if the space between them was an invisible wall neither dared to cross. In that moment, the world seemed to stop for them both, suspended in an unbearable stillness. For millions who followed their love story, this moment was nothing more than a fleeting image. For them, it was the culmination of months of laughter, pain, dreams, and disappointments. It was a silence filled with questions that had no answers. Can and Demet's story had always been one of contrasts. Two wildly successful stars, each commanding the spotlight in their own right, yet bound together by a connection that fans described as electric. They shared moments that looked like something out of a movie, stolen glances on red carpets, cozy dinners hidden from prying eyes, late-night conversations filled with promises that felt eternal. But behind the scenes, things were more complicated. Behind every smile and every affectionate gesture lay fears and insecurities, doubts about the future, and struggles to balance personal dreams with the demands of fame. Can was a man who loved quietly but deeply. His strength wasn't in grand declarations but in being a steadfast presence, always standing behind Demet, supporting her ambitions, and waiting patiently for the right moment. His love was steady like the tide, persistent, inevitable, yet often unnoticed. Demet, on the other hand, carried the weight of expectations differently. Her heart was filled with dreams not just of love, but of independence and self-realization. The public adored her warmth and charm, but few saw the moments when she questioned her own choices, when vulnerability crept beneath her confident facade. So when that night came, the night when Can stood behind her and she didn't turn around, it wasn't simply about a missed glance or a fleeting hesitation. It was a crossroads, a moment charged with all the tension between holding on and letting go. What led them to this silent fracture? What emotions clashed in the space between those two hearts? To understand, we must look back at their journey, starting from the spark that brought them together. They met at a glamorous industry event, surrounded by cameras and eager fans. The instant connection was undeniable, a brief touch of hands, a shared smile that lingered longer than it should have. From that point on, their paths intertwined. Early days were filled with excitement, discovery, and the intoxicating feeling of new love. They explored the city's hidden corners, exchanged secret messages, and built a private world away from public scrutiny. It was a time when everything seemed possible, when the future gleamed bright with hope. But the pressure of their careers soon tested the foundation they had laid. Long days on separate sets, conflicting schedules, and the relentless glare of the spotlight created cracks in their bubble. Rumors swirled, some fueled by jealousy, others by misunderstandings. And while their love remained strong, the challenges wore on them. Can often found himself waiting for a text, a call, a sign that Demet still believed in them. His patience was heroic but quietly painful. Every moment spent behind her was a testament to his faith, but also a reminder of the growing distance. Demet, meanwhile, wrestled with her own fears. Was she ready to give up parts of herself for the sake of a relationship? Could she trust that love alone would be enough to overcome obstacles? These questions haunted her, making her cautious and, at times, distant. Then came the night that would change everything. They had met to talk, not about work, not about appearances, but about them. The conversation was honest, raw, and at times painful. Words were exchanged that peeled back layers of hope and doubt. Promises made, tears shed, and a silent understanding that the road ahead would not be easy. As they stepped outside, the cool night air wrapped around them. Can followed quietly behind Demet, wanting to reach out, to hold her, to ask her to stay. But she walked forward without looking back. The city lights blurred in her eyes as she fought the urge to turn, to meet his gaze, to bridge the distance. Why didn't she turn? Because sometimes, love is not enough. Because sometimes, the fear of pain outweighs the desire for connection. Because sometimes, walking away is the only way to protect what's left of a fragile heart. Can's heart broke in silence. He remained still, watching as she disappeared into the night, carrying with her the echoes of a love that might have been. For them, that moment was both an ending and a beginning. A painful reminder of what was lost, but also a silent plea for healing. That night, the world around them faded into a blur. The bustling city noises dimmed, and all that remained was the charged atmosphere between two hearts caught in a silent storm. Can Yaman stood just behind Demet Özdemir, his breath steady but his mind racing with thoughts that he couldn't voice. Every step she took forward was a small heartbreak, a reminder that the bridge between them was trembling, fragile. In that exact moment, time seemed elastic, stretched thin by the weight of what was left unsaid. Can's mind was a chaotic symphony of memories, her laughter, the warmth of her hand in his, the countless promises whispered in the quiet of the night. And yet, here she was, walking away, not turning back even once. Why? It was a question that had haunted him in the days, weeks, and months that followed. Because the truth was complicated, a tangle of emotions, fears, and expectations that neither of them fully understood at the time. To truly grasp the significance of that moment, we must dive deep into Can's perspective. A man who loved with intensity but struggled with expressing vulnerability. Someone who had always been the rock in their relationship, quietly supporting Demet's dreams, shielding her from the harsh glare of fame. But love, no matter how strong, sometimes demands more than silent endurance. It demands understanding, openness, and a willingness to face uncomfortable truths. Can recalled the conversations they'd had earlier that evening. They had tried to confront their issues, to peel back the layers of misunderstanding that had grown between them. It was raw and painful, a mixture of tears and attempted reassurances. Yet, beneath the words, an invisible barrier was already forming. He wanted to reach out, to stop her from walking away, but the fear of rejection held him back. His heart screamed to bridge the distance, but his mind warned him to respect her space, her choices. From Demet's side, the weight she carried was equally heavy. Behind the strength she showed the world was a young woman wrestling with her own doubts and insecurities. The relentless pressure of maintaining her career while navigating a high-profile relationship had taken its toll. In that moment, not turning around was her way of protecting herself. It was a shield against vulnerability, a desperate attempt to keep the fragile pieces of her heart intact. Turning back would mean confronting pain she wasn't ready to face, exposing emotions too raw to handle in public or even in private. Their love story, as enchanting as it seemed to outsiders, was also a story of two imperfect people struggling to reconcile their dreams and fears. As Demet walked forward, each step was a silent farewell, an unspoken acknowledgement that things had changed irrevocably. Can's presence behind her was a testament to his hope that someday she might turn, that the distance could be closed. But sometimes, hope alone isn't enough. In the days after, Can replayed that moment over and over in his mind. He analyzed every glance, every breath, every heartbeat. What could he have done differently? Was there a sign he missed? Could love really survive the silence? For Demet, that night marked a turning point. She questioned everything, herself, the relationship, the future. Was she running from love or running toward freedom? Was she protecting her heart or shutting out the only person who truly understood her? Their story is not just about a moment frozen in time, but about the complexity of love itself, the fragile balance between holding on and letting go. The silence that night spoke volumes. It told a story of pain, fear, and unspoken longing. But it also carried a subtle promise that maybe, even in separation, there is room for understanding and growth. Because sometimes, the moments that break us are the same ones that teach us to heal. As we continue, we will explore what happened after that night, how silence turned into reflection, how absence deepened feelings, and whether the distance between them was truly insurmountable. For now, that night remains etched in memory, when he was behind her, and she didn't turn around. The night he stood behind her and she didn't turn around was not just a moment, it was a turning point. The fragile hinge upon which their story swung from hope to uncertainty. What followed was a period marked by silence, distance, and questions that neither dared to voice aloud. In the days after, the void between Can and Demet grew palpable. The laughter that once filled their shared spaces was replaced by a heavy quietness, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Both of them retreated into their own worlds, each wrestling with the memories of what was and the painful reality of what had become. For Can, the silence was deafening. He poured his heart into work, interviews, and public appearances, but behind the scenes, his thoughts remained tangled with the image of Demet walking away, her back turned and unreachable. He replayed their last conversations, searching for clues, trying to understand where the connection had slipped through their fingers. Demet, too, faced her own battles. She wrestled with guilt and confusion, the kind that kept her awake during lonely nights, questioning whether her choices were right. Was she protecting herself or pushing away the one person who mattered most? The spotlight that once felt warm now seemed harsh and unrelenting, illuminating every crack in her carefully crafted armor. Their fans speculated endlessly, piecing together fragments from social media posts, rumors, and subtle interactions. Yet behind the scenes, the truth was far more complex, a tapestry woven with love, hurt, and the difficult dance of two souls trying to find their way. Despite the distance, hope lingered like a fragile flame. Both Can and Demet carried with them the memories of better days, moments of joy, shared dreams, and the promise that once felt unbreakable. The question was whether those memories were enough to bridge the growing gap. Over time, they each embarked on journeys of self-discovery. Can explored new projects, channeled his emotions into his craft, and sought peace within. Demet focused on her own growth, embracing challenges and learning to stand stronger on her own. Occasionally, their paths crossed, fleeting encounters that reignited old feelings and complicated the narrative. Was reconciliation possible? Or was the silence now a permanent barrier? The answer, like love itself, is rarely simple. Their story reminds us that sometimes, people grow apart not because they stopped caring, but because the timing was wrong, the circumstances too heavy. That sometimes, love requires space to heal, to breathe, and to transform. And sometimes, standing behind someone, waiting patiently, is the most profound act of love there is. As we close this chapter, we leave you with a thought: in every story of love and loss, there is always room for hope. Because even when she didn't turn around, the possibility of looking back remains. The story of Can Yaman and Demet Özdemir is far from over. Their journey continues, filled with lessons about love, resilience, and the power of silent understanding.